This is Chip Maxwell, and you're listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. In today's guest episode, attorney Colin Kastrick with Kastrick Law breaks down the latest updates in state taxes, business law, and compliance requirements. He dives into the shifting regulations on business reporting activities such as MCTA and FinCET, discussing their implications and recent deadline extensions. Tune in for insights and practical advice to keep your business ahead of legal changes.
In studio once again, we have our resident authority on everything estate taxes, business law, and boy, lots and lots of changes. Colin Kastrick, attorney extraordinaire. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. So, man, lots of changes. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about the business reporting activity, FinCET, whatever the heck we called that, right?
MCTA, yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about this every show, it seems like, because there's always changes to this. And
well, it was on, then it got a stay from Texas, then it was, nope, it's back on. Then they extended the date to the 13th. You could have done it, which would be about when this show airs. And then, oh, never mind, you have to do it again.
Yeah, but now it's until March. So they're going to have their oral arguments in March. And so everyone knows our opinion on this law. But yeah, what's happening is we had that filing requirement, and it's still in place. It's still a law, but there's an injunction on it, which means you don't have to comply until they've heard their oral arguments in March. We're still telling clients to file just in case, because the penalties are huge. I mean, we talk about this every show. It's $500 a day.
Well, what drives me nuts about this is just clear overreach, overregulation. And the penalties, though, we're not playing around. This isn't just monetary. There's actually jail time.
Jail time, yeah.
And
sometimes for the attorney, too.
Okay, so
nuts.
We started off fast and furious, as we always do. So kind of explain to people what this law is, what its intention was supposed to be.
Yeah, so it was enacted a couple of years ago, and the intention was to keep money laundering out of it. They were saying there's all these shell companies. We want to know who actually owns them to try to bring anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism. So trying to figure out who owns these U.S. companies, right? And so the intentions were good. But then they made a bunch of strange rules, and they didn't exempt small business owners. That is just your average worker who has, a small company there, people who aren't going to comply. And so what those people are supposed to do is go onto FinCEN's website, upload their information, tax ID, their state ID, things like that, just to tell the government who owns the company.
Yeah, they want to know who the beneficial owner is, which, ironically, all that information is found on every state's Secretary of State's website. It's already public information.
Yeah, it's just overreach is what it is. But
I think we could take a 22-year-old coding kid who could probably create an app that would collect all the data from all 50 states and save. But, the government likes to spend money. Boy, do they like to spend money.
Well, now we're seeing scams come out of this. There's fake websites up. There are people getting things in the mail saying you have to do this. And so it's just ripe for scams and non-compliance. And so I'm hoping, and I think a lot of us are hoping, that this gets invalidated or changed somehow in March here when they do the arguments. But as of right now, we still tell clients you should probably go on there, probably file just to be safe, because they could put a backlog to January 13th and charge you 3 months of overage.
All right,
so just to be safe.
Speaking of government overreach, we're one of only 5 states now that still has an inheritance tax here in Nebraska. However, we have great news for our friends across the river in Iowa, because Iowa is officially off that list now. In 2025, there is no longer any form of inheritance tax, correct?
Correct, yeah. They phased that out over a couple of years. In January 1st, 2025, everybody who passes away after that, no inheritance tax, which is great. Because, again, it's just another tax that was unnecessary, especially for those farmers and ranchers who didn't have any kids. Because in Iowa, was taxed just like Nebraska, they overtax them. And so it's a penalty for not having kids. In Nebraska, you can't get away from it. Everybody gets it. Iowa's was as long as they weren't your kids, you got taxed. But now it's gone, which is great.
We're still here. And that's, again, one of the things you talk about in the estate planning class. By the way, the next one of those, again, last year, our absolutely most popular class, tax and estate planning, is coming up actually next week, right?
Yeah, yep. January 14th and January 16th at Midwest Learning Center. Mike Schudel and I will be presenting.
And Mike is, has a law degree. He's not a practicing attorney, but he's, one of our most experienced advisors on our team here. He and Colin do an amazing job at this class. So I highly recommend, if you've never been, get on the list because it does fill up. You do have to RSVP. You can just give us a call at 402-369-7777 or just go to retiresmartomaha.com/events and you'll find it. But you do need to register. But you're going to be talking about the changes there. But unfortunately, what didn't change is if you're not married here in Nebraska, it's still 15% tax. And we have so many couples that cohabitat and their intentions, I'm going to leave the house to, Betty if I pass away, et cetera, and my IRA goes to my kids. I'm like, do you understand what that means, if you're not legally married? And so we're constantly fighting that battle to get people, even our own clients, educated on these very important topics.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Like you said, we don't have common law here, so there is no common law marriage. So if you're not officially married, anything they inherit is taxed at 15%, and it's due within a year. There's no extensions or anything like that. Actually, it's a huge penalty if you don't pay it in a year.
Oh, yeah. And so if you have a house that's $500,000 you leave to your significant other that you're not married to, 15% tax is $75,000, right? Which means, and if they don't have that laying around, they either have to go get a mortgage on that house or unfortunately sell the asset, which is what we see happen often. This happens in businesses, farms, companies. I mean, just appreciated assets. So really think through what have you acquired, who are you leaving it to, and do you understand how to do that in the most efficient manner?
And then the topic of the show is kind of penalties. And so in Nebraska, if you don't pay that inheritance tax within 1 year, it's a 14% interest rate, late fee.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I even realized it was 14%.
That accrues daily. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's they don't mess around here. And so you want to make sure that gets paid. A lot of people just don't know about it. And that's the unfortunate thing. I've had clients coming to me on the 11th month and say, well, we don't owe any tax. And I was like, did they have more than $100,000? Well, yeah. Well, you should probably look into that.
It used to be 40,000. I think we exempted, right? At least we got it to 100,000, and that it was 18%. I think right now it's 15.
Yeah.
But still, that's outrageous to me. All right. Well, that and a lot more are what you'll learn about at that tax and estate planning class with Colin Kastrick and Mike Schudel. Again, I encourage you to attend that. So let's with the time we've got left, let's talk about what we think are the potential changes. So I've been doing a lot of research. We do our annual State of the Union update. We're having that for our clients. And for you listeners out there, you can get on the wait list. We are going to allow a few of our listeners that are not clients to attend it this year because we're doing it, I believe, at the Durham Museum. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But we've got a lot of potential changes coming, and there's a lot of confusion on what do we think will stay permanent from what we call the Trump tax cuts and what will most likely expire.
Yeah, and so that's a good event, by the way. If anyone can get in there, it's a great event they do annually. So yeah, that's the thing is that the Biden administration didn't make a lot of changes. They kind of left a lot of the Trump tax laws in place, but those tax laws, when they were passed years ago in the first Trump administration, they were passed to be a temporary law, right? So they were under what's called budget reconciliation. So it means it can't be permanent. So I think what Trump's aiming to do is make that law permanent, right? So that means the estate tax hopefully stays where it's at or goes up, which is good for people, right? And we're hoping that that all of the things that he originally put in, like increased depreciation for 179 and things like that, hopefully are put back into place for business owners. The other thing he's proposed is a 15% corporate tax, and so
if you make your product in America, basically,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of his administration talking about a lot of There's tax credits for American-made cars and things like that.
The 51st state being north of us potentially. And
I was going to say, with Trudeau and everything.
and we've heard, I've seen maps now on Twitter or X of Trump land instead of Greenland.
And so and that's the thing. Hopefully, it's all of the things that were enacted in that law, which is a good law for the most part. Obviously, they took away a few things I'd like to see back in there, but they're trying to make those laws permanent, and I think that there's a good chance that a lot of that happens.
Well, I mean, a lot of things that are going to affect people if they're not paying attention to is QBI deduction, qualified business income. So if you have what's called a pass-through entity, this is if you have a corporation that you choose to file as what's called an S corp or an LLC, the most common, all the income you have passes through to your personal tax return. You don't pay any taxes out of the companies when they're structured that way. Well, right now you're benefiting at least most of them, not everybody. You and I are in the exclusions, but most companies are getting a 20% deduction right off their income. And that's expiring. And so people need to be paying attention so they're at least prepared, because one of the things we're working on the presentation for the State of the Union is that what does each of these cost to continue, right? If they make these things permanent, or if they just do, and that's the other thing is you got to remember, you'd have to have an actual majority, 60 votes in the Senate to truly make it permanent. I don't think he's got it, right? Yeah. Because of the makeup. We got 53 seats that will probably vote. So it's probably through another budget act, which means they can only knock it out another 10 years, right? But it's over $3.8 trillion just to extend the income tax for that period. So it's helping people understand what's reality and what's going to come true. And obviously we'll know a lot in the next 90 to 120 days.
Yeah. And so obviously we know Congress works slowly, right? And so we could see a temporary basically reset of it until they get something new into place. But we're hoping that they can get something, like you said, under that reconciliation. They just need a simple majority to pass the law. And so hopefully they can do that, and we can extend all these or try to make them permanent. But we'll see what happens. Everything that's been told by this administration is that we're hoping that these tax laws continue. And a lot of them are beneficial to estate planning. And so it's a good thing.
It's crazy. Well, I don't have time this week, but next time I have you on, I want to talk about some new language that's being put in all the health insurance contracts this year, something I just noticed. So we'll tease that for the next time you're on. But if you folks would like to register for the class with Colin here coming up this week, again, it's January 14th or 16th, 6:30 p.m. at the Midwest Learning Center. But you do need to register. 402-369-7777. We are out of time, Colin. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. If you want to learn how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, visit retiresmartpodcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to keep up with new episodes every week. Colin Kastrick and Kastrick Law, LLC are not affiliated with Retire Smart and were not compensated for his appearance or any implied endorsement. However, Kastrick Law is a tenant of and may share clients with Retire Smart.